trusted Jake Moody over and over again, even though it's been shown that he's not very trustworthy.
That's a
Also, I
great
don't know what
question. I
point
wish
I
I could
was.
answer, but I don't think I
Yeah,
can
yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
it's Kyle Shanahan's mind, right? But it's a great
Yeah,
point because a missed field goal is like a fourth down turnover.
it's like the
You lose
same, right?
momentum. You lose momentum when you miss a fourth down stop. When you miss a kick, the other team gets momentum. So it's like either way, it's a turnover. So that's a great question. Does it make Kyle play very conservative and not kick field goals and rather just punt and put them inside the 10-yard line?
Yeah. Okay. You're right. You're not in Kyle Shanahan's mind, but if
It's
I
a
was
great
at media
question.
day, if I was at media day instead of freaking all these people, do you see someone like
They're great
ask?
questions. They're great. I'm gonna I know you're giving me that look, but I'm gonna tell you why they're great questions, Ashley.
Okay, tell me,
Okay.
tell me.
So I don't know if I told you, but the Super Bowl is one of the easiest to get credentialed for. And the reason that
Okay.
is because you're able to create a narrative, create conversation on any platform about the Super Bowl. For example, you see all these celebrity content creators who are going out there and asking questions for their personal YouTube pages, personal Twitters or whatever, just to ask fun questions. Whether, hey, what's your favorite M&M? Would you get Brock Purdy's face tattooed on you if it
Yeah.
guaranteed a Super Bowl ring? That was one of the biggest questions. But it's the NFL promoting
Asked to
their
literally every
platform,
single player.
which is kind of
Like
cool
had
because
full
it's
on conversation.
because so I think it's cool because it promotes the Super Bowl in ways that some people would never know about. So for example, there's I seen a she's a content creator, but she does makeup, asking questions. Like
Okay.
that
Like that.
beauty industry. So for example, it's a similar situation to
Yeah,
the
Taylor
Taylor
Swift. Taylor
Swift,
Swift.
right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah. I like that.
So it's a very similar situation. Like it's a fans are hearing about the Super Bowl, hearing these questions that normally wouldn't hear these questions. So that's why the
It can
NFL
get
does
them
it.
interested. That makes
Yeah,
sense.
absolutely. So and more
I will
viewership, more
say
money.
I will say I know not Taylor, Tracy Sandler. She's a beat reporter for the 49ers. And this was not a Super Bowl question, but it was just like she does these like little 5-minute questions. I remember when Mosley was on the team, she asked him like some of his hidden talents and he ended up singing a little bit because he did choir growing up and like was always really into music. And I remember finding that as kind of a fan who is interested in the personal side of these players sometimes like I like football, but I also like the entertainment aspect of it. I found that interesting. She did the same thing with Charvarius Ward. He talked about his top 5 favorite books. 4 of his. Have you ever heard of Colleen Hoover?
I have not. Is it a good book?
Okay, probably not because she makes books, and this is no diss to Charvarius Ward, but she makes like Twilight, like 15-year-old girl kind of fan fiction-y books, like they're like romance, like tortured to it's always like a romance that's like kind of toxic, like something that like would be interesting to like a little girl,
All
not a
right.
little girl but like a teenager, like, and this is shit that I love. Like I like these books, so I'm not dissing Ward. I swear to God, 4 of his 5 favorite books were Colleen Hoover books, and I've never liked a player more. I'm so intrigued, and like the other one was like
That's
some
crazy.
Buddhist book that was about mindset, and I found it absolutely hilarious that like interwoven in these like very childish books was like this random self-help book about like meditation. But so I'm just saying that to agree with you. Sometimes questions that are maybe not like can you break down this exact scheme can get people who maybe aren't already into football interested, and then they learn more about it from there.
You
I
also
do
too
agree
got
with
to
that.
realize too, like they're there at media day for a couple of hours for like 3 days, right? Or
Yeah.
4 days. How many questions can they answer about football? Like
Yeah,
how
right.
many
Like they get
questions are
bored.
there really about football? Like this kind of gets boring for a player, like a person that are humans too. I thought Leo Luna, who was a good friend, he was there. He asked a lot of football like questions. The one that NBC Authentic Bay Area caught was who he asked Debo Samuel. Hey, I have kids too. I know you have a kid. Who would you allow to watch your kids, and who would you not
Oh,
allow to watch your kids in the locker room?
what do you
He
say? What do
said,
you say? I didn't hear this
I
one.
want to say Kyle Juszczyk was the one that he would allow watch his kids. He said he thinks him and Christian would
Went
do
to
a good
Harvard. I
job.
see that.
Yeah, he did a good job. He's a smart guy. He said Jawan Jennings, I would not let watch my kid. I could see that. I can see like it's a very
That's
rough
so
guy. You
funny.
know what? Let's wrestle and stuff like that. So I could
Debo
definitely
comes
see that.
back and he has like a broken leg and a mohawk. He's like,
But it's funny
sorry,
because
man.
Jennings has kids too, so that's what's funny. Jennings has kids. I don't think Kyle has kids. I don't think Juice has kids. So that's the funny part.
That is that's fucked up. But you're right. Jennings does seem like the guy like you'd come back and he'd be like, I accidentally like backflipped him off the trampoline and he hurt his leg, but then I gave him 2 pints of ice cream to make up for it. So now your
Absolutely.
kid like is like running around and you're like, what happened? um okay, so we talked about the concerns for the 49ers. I also wanted to maybe sum this up a little bit with talking about, first of all, the award seasons happened. I don't know if you talked about it on your channel, but Christian McCaffrey did win Offensive Player of the Year, which makes total sense. I think most people assumed he would do that. Was obviously in the running for MVP, but that went to Lamar Jackson. So those are just cool things with the 49ers that have happened. I think they deserve that praise. If you were going to pick someone that you assumed would like if the 49ers win MVP, who do you think will be Super Bowl, or if the 49ers win the Super Bowl, who do you think will be Super Bowl MVP if you had to bet on it?
Christian McCaffrey. I think this is a perfect game to run the ball, perfect game for him to capitalize on running the ball. I definitely could see him being Super Bowl MVP, but I could also see Debo Samuel being the MVP of the game in terms of the game plan should be Debo Samuel and um, Christian McCaffrey heavy. So if you do that, they are the top two for me. Offensively, defensively, I'm going to go Fred Warner and Nick Bosa. Those are like the easy choices for me on
Yeah, yeah.
defense.
Has a linebacker ever won it?
Yes, Drummer of the Year, Malcolm Smith won it for the Seahawks.
Okay,
He had an
okay, there we
interception
go.
and a fumble recovery, I believe.
Oh, there you go. And I know that Fred Warner had talked about that on his podcast, right? He needs, I think, an interception in order to break some sort of record for the 49ers on like
Oh wow,
most in the league. He's only like one away. So I haven't watched he hasn't had his podcast in a couple of weeks, but I remember hearing that he was like one interception away from breaking a franchise record with that. But okay, so I would go, I think for both teams, quarterback is always, to me, it always goes to the quarterback. But you're right. If not Brock Purdy, I think both Christian McCaffrey and Debo Samuel have excellent chances of making it because they're two players that can score multiple times very quickly.
I don't even
And
think I like. I mean, I don't even think Purdy has a great shot to win it because, like, if we're going off of like what the Niners should do game plan wise, it should technically
yeah,
be
yeah.
like the
And the
game plan
narrative is
should
kind of
be
like manage the game, right? So maybe
unless he comes out and just like throws 300 plus
just slinging
yards,
it.
3 touchdowns, and like that, then I see him winning. But I don't see him. I don't see the game plan calling for throwing the ball for 300 yards. I see the game plan being Christian McCaffrey gets 150 total purpose, all-purpose yards, whether that's 150 rushing yards or whatever. I see Christian McCaffrey having 2 touchdowns. So like if you have 150 total yards and 2 touchdowns as a running back, how do you not win it? Like that's kind of where I'm looking at it. Like the game plan for me personally, if I was Kyle, would be a heavy Christian McCaffrey and Debo game. So unfortunately, I don't see Brock Purdy winning the MVP, but I don't think Purdy would care. So that's all that matters.
That's true. And Al Bunny in the comments says Ayuk. I don't think Ayuk has a like. I'm not saying he can't, but I don't. I see him very lower down the totem pole.
Actually, if he does have a
Okay.
crazy catch, something crazy,
Yeah, like some like
miraculous, late game
shocking like.
saving touchdown catch, like a freaking bounce the football off a corner's face, and he dives and catches a ladybug while he catches a touchdown, the ladybug situation, then he's MVP. Like that's how I see it.
I love that. I love that. I think it's going to be imperative. We want to talk about Nick Bosa if he can start sacking freaking Patrick Mahomes. I know I read a stat that they've scored a touchdown, or yeah, I think it's a touchdown on 8 of their last consecutive games on their first drive. So they've scored right away. Kind of similar to the 49ers with getting ahead in the fourth quarter. I mean, getting ahead in the first quarter and then kind of riding out the game. Interesting that both teams have that same sort of strategy. Before we go, do you have like a score prediction? Do you have a score in mind or no?
I do have a score in mind, but right before we go, I know you mentioned Bosa. He should be able to get some pressure because of their offensive tackles. But do you remember in 2022 last year when we played the Kansas City Chiefs and they beat us 44-23, and the game plan was to actually attack Nick Bosa in the run game and
Yeah, like
running
they ran
screens
right
at
at
him?
him, right?
And they were
Yeah.
running a lot of screens at him. I think that's
Yeah.
also something I could see them doing with McKinnon, um, Edward
Yeah.
Hilaire, Isaiah Pacheco. Like they also used McCole Hardman in a situation where he was lined up in a condensed formation.
I
So
remember
that's
that because it was like, what the heck? How is he? He was like a Debo role, and we were like, what?
mhm. And they were running right at Bosa. They were using his aggressiveness against him. So that's something I'm like, hey, hopefully you guys turn on 2022 film because Andy Reid is going to attack him just like Kyle Shanahan attacks the other players, best defensive
Mm.
lineman. So that's me where on the
I'm
back of my
nervous.
head, I'm like,
We
hey,
started this. We started this, and I was like, I'm not nervous, and now I'm nervous. I'm nervous.
so for me, that's something I thought on the back of my head. I'm like, you know what? Like that's something Andy Reid's gonna try to do. But at the end of the day, Niners win this game 28-24. I don't think anyone will score 30 points. 28 is even pushing it for me. I'm more like 20, 24-21 is ideal, but I think the Niners score 4 touchdowns. I think it's 28-24.
And if they score over that 24, which you're predicting, that's how you beat the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking, and I'm doing this just because once again, like I think I've done this previously too. I like to put my expectations low and then be like, I'm not a gambler, but if I did gamble, I feel like maybe I wouldn't do this because I'm also kind of superstitious, but I can like see the allure on like betting against your favorite team because then if you win as like a fan, you win, but then if you lose, at least you get something and you're not as disappointed. So I'm gonna bet 27-24 Chiefs.
So
I freaking
you're
hope I'm
telling me
wrong.
Jake
I'm gonna
Moody
feel
loses
so.
the game.
I'm gonna feel.
That's what you're
I wrote a
telling
tweet
me.
about that. I wrote a tweet saying that like
And you probably
during the
got cooked on
season.
Twitter.
And I'm gonna, I know, I'm gonna delete that if that
I'm just
happens.
gonna,
I'm gonna be
gonna
like,
go find it
you can't
right
blame me.
now. I'm
You
finding
can't
it
blame
right
me.
now to retweet it.
um, I'm freaking, I'm excited. I don't want football to be over. I'm nervous about it. Did you see before we go while you're finding that? Did you see Steve Young kind of explain that he thought Brock Purdy gets disrespected because he's like he basically admitted like he's not as talented as Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and those guys. And Steve Young also was like, when I was playing, I wasn't the prototype, wannabe quarterback, but nowadays I would fit right in, and it was kind of cool. Steve Young comparing
It,
himself a little bit to the Mahomes and more mobile quarterbacks.
it's funny because that comment, I thought it was funny because he was like, yeah, nowadays I would be. He was like, well, he's a little bit better than what he gets credit for. I'm like, what do you mean he's a little bit he's better than what he gets credit for? Like, you guys are seeing a lot of people keep saying that exact quote, like, oh, he's better than he gets credit for.
It's like
Is
if
he
everyone says that, aren't you kind of all giving him credit?
like, yeah, like is he and he should be given credit then? Like, what do you mean better than what he gets credit? It's like that to me where I was like, all right. But Steve Young is also the biggest Niners supporter ever. He won't talk negative about the Niners. So is it more where he's like, you know
Yeah.
what? On film, I see stuff. In today's age, Steve Young would be beyond what
Is Joe
people thought. Like
Montana
he would,
going neutral? Has he said like who's he rooting for?
I think
Because
he's
Steve
going for the
Young's been in
Niners.
like all of the promotion videos for the 49ers. Have
I
you seen
think
those?
he's,
The hype
I,
videos?
yeah, I think he's choosing Niners. Because he's been a pretty big Niners supporter the last couple of times. The only thing I think is for him, he's held a grudge against the Niners for a little while. He's
But
always
more
has.
against like the coach, right?
Yeah, for trading him away. But for me, I think it's one of those ones where he's finally back as a full 49er guy because he sees a lot of similarities in himself and in Brock Purdy. I think he sees like the young kid who is very talented, is very Christ driven, not the biggest
I
quarterback,
love
not
that. By the
the
way, I'm not like a hugely religious person, but I really liked someone when we were talking about kind of off football questions. Someone, I don't think they meant it in like a gotcha thing, but they were like, "Oh, like do you think of first of all they said like do you think of God, or do you still pray? And like, do you have any Bible verses that have gotten you through the season?" He had one right away, completely recited, knew exactly what he was going to say. And then something I really liked was he said when he's on the field, he prays, but it's not that he prays like, please God, let me win. He prays for like clarity within the moment, calmness within the moment in order to like perform his best, but not like he doesn't make it like game specific, because I've always found that kind of confusing. I remember, I think it was against the Rams, like Jalen Ramsey was like saying, like, when they won, he was like, well, God just like, he had my back and wanted us to win today. And then like, I'm like, well, there's definitely players on the other team that are also really like, God isn't like a 49er fan or like you know what I mean? Like, I don't
what
think
I
God has a favorite sports team. So I liked that Brock Purdy, when he was talking about it, I felt like it was like such an approachable and like really likable way that he explained it, where he wasn't like, oh, I'm like praying for a win and I'm praying for like praise. He kind of said the opposite. Like he was like, I'm just praying for like kind of calmness and clarity within the moment, and like to be able to step up and be like my highest self, because I think that that will give me the opportunity to then win the game. But I'm not like making it about a game. I'm making it about how to be the best me. And I thought that that was just like a cool, once again, I'm not super religious, but like listening to him talk about it. Some people, I feel like, I don't, and this might be controversial, but I feel like some people, the way they talk about it can be almost like a turnoff because they're so pushy about it. He approaches it in such like a, I don't know, a really approachable way. I like really enjoyed listening to him talk about it.
and I
And you
like
can
one
tell
of
it
his
means a
comments.
lot to him and is important to him, but it's not like in your face, or if you don't feel this way
He's not
bad. It's
preaching
just
to
like
you. He's
talking.
not trying to
Yeah.
get you to believe in what he believes. He's like in
Yeah.
one of the ones where he was like, yeah, he was like, I'm here because he wants me to be here. If he wanted me to tear my UCL, that's what he wanted from me. Like he has a plan for me. He has a vision for me. Whether I win the Super Bowl, whether I lose the Super Bowl, he goes, it does not matter. And I thought this was cool of him to say, like, it does not matter, because the glory that I get isn't for myself. It's for him. Like it's
Yeah.
not for me. Like I understand that when you get glory, you change as a person and you lose your morals as a person when you change and get all this fame. And he literally said, he's like, I don't care what fame and what money comes to me. I'm staying true to myself and my faith. And I was like, that was pretty cool to hear
Yeah.
him
Yeah.
say, like, even though
He's like so mature
like
for such a
it's
young kid. I love
like, I
that.
thought that was pretty cool for him to say. I'm not gonna lie. I thought that was cool.
Yeah. Well, do you have any last minute things you want to say? I
Yeah. What's your
gotta,
score prediction? You said you're choosing the Chiefs, right?
yeah, 27-24, I think.
Jeez, you and Rohan
Okay.
both on back-to-back shows choosing the
What
Chiefs.
did
That's crazy.
Rohan chose
Y
the Chiefs too?
Yeah, I wanna say he chose the same exact score, 24-21.
I hope I'm wrong. I just gonna be so, I'm gonna be so excited. I'm gonna be so freaking excited. I hope I'm wrong. I
Well,
just like to, once
hopefully.
again, I'm setting my expectations low so I can be,
So you when you're watching the game, you don't have a heart attack. You're like, "Yeah, I was already expecting this," you know?
yeah. I'll still have a heart attack. Don't you worry. My sweater is gonna be, I'm gonna be like, what are you doing?
So hopefully Patrick Mahomes doesn't pull out, a rabbit from his hat, and hopefully the Niners can stop the run. Hopefully
The
Niners run the ball down their
49ers
throats.
should win, right? Like the 49ers should win. It's just hard to pick against Mahomes.
And they have a much better roster, like top to bottom. Their Niners roster is night and day better than the Chiefs. So it's
Yeah.
like if you lose this game, who, to be honest,
Yeah, it's like
if they
scary because
do,
you're like,
who the
you
hell do you
you
blame?
really had the best chance.
Yeah, like this is their year. Like it's crazy because normally you say that because your team's actually like gonna win it. This literally from the beginning of the season was like
It's felt
everything
like
was
it, right?
set.
Like
Yeah,
I feel like we've been predicting the 49ers at least to be in the Super Bowl since the beginning of the season. So you are very right. It's like it's incredible that they're here, and it does feel, I mean, that catch off a helmet, you kind of do think that there's some sort of fate or something going on and the 49ers should win. So, I wouldn't be surprised.
question for you.
Yeah.
1990. Okay, these are Super Bowl
Is
tickets.
this going to be trivia?
Okay, yeah, trivia.
I wasn't born
1990.
yet. Okay.
You in 1990?
Yeah, I wasn't born in 1990.
Oh yeah, you were. Okay, yeah, you're right. I'm wrong.
You
I
looked at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, no, I wasn't. I
so
don't know.
how much was the Super Bowl ticket in 1990?
Oh, that's a good one. I have no idea. They're like $1 bajillion now. I saw someone on Twitter be like, "Oh my god, I almost got a discount for like $6,000," and I was like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, that's
it's,
fucking wild.
it's like half of a year of rent.
Okay, we got
Someone
Al
said
Bunny. We got
$75.
$75. That's a good guess. Good
No, I
guess.
think like five. I think like 200, 500. No,
You're
how much?
close. You're actually 200 is close. It's actually
200.
125 in the states, all taxes included. That's crazy. The other one here from the Niners' first Super Bowl.
Yeah,
It says that the Niners was the year of 1982, and it was $40.
that's so crazy. Well, next year, me and you are going to be there asking interesting questions for the media, right?
Not getting
Someone
in,
told
but I'll
me.
be there.
Someone freaking told me. Yeah, not at the game, but unless we get credentialed. But someone told me the other day they were like, if you have a podcast and a name and a face, you can get credentialed. So I was
Yeah,
like,
for this
I'm
to Super
going.
Media Week, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. It's one
Yeah,
of the easier ones to get credentialed for.
yeah.
But my wife, I already told my wife, I was like, Super Bowl next year, let's go. It's actually in New Orleans, so that'll be a fun one.
Oh
It's
heck
actually in New
yeah!
Orleans, so I was like,
I always think
well,
of this is like not at all what you're supposed to think of when it comes to
Mardi
New
Gras.
Orleans. But yeah, but when I was like really young, I think in middle school or something, did you ever listen to Tech Nine?
I did.
And he has that song like Flash, like it's Mardi Gras. So whenever I think of New Orleans, I think of Tech Nine.
That's
So
hilarious.